This is Alan Watts speaking, and I'm this evening on my ferry boat the host to a fascinating party sponsored by the San Francisco Oracle, which is our new underground paper, far outer than any far out that has yet been seen. And we have here Alan Cohen representing the paper, the Oracle. We have Allen Ginsberg, poet and rabbinic sadhu. We have Timothy Leary, about whom nothing needs to be said, and Gary Snyder, also poet, Zen monk, and old friend of many years.
Everybody is all bugged because they think, one, the dropout thing really doesn't mean anything. It's what you're going to cultivate is a lot of freak-out hippies goofing around throwing bottles through windows when they flip out on LSD. That's their stereotype vision. Obviously a stereotype.
Sounds like Bolshevik.
Second, no, it's no different from the newspaper vision anyway. I mean, they've got the newspaper vision. And secondly, they're afraid that there'll be some sort of fascist putsch, like is rumored lately, everybody's going to be arrested, so that the lack of organization or the lack of community, the lack of communicating community among the hippies will lead to some concentration camp situation, or lead, as it has been in Los Angeles recently, to a dispersal of what beginning of the community began.
These are the old menopausal minds. There was a psychiatrist named Adler in San Francisco whose interpretation of the Butte-Bean was that this is the basis for new fascism when a leader comes along. And I sense in the activist movement the cry for a leader.
But they're just as intelligent as you are on this fact. They know about what happened in Russia. That's the reason that they haven't got a big active organization, is because they too are stumped by how do you have a community and a community movement and cooperation within the community to make life more pleasing for everybody, including the end of the Vietnam War. How do you have such a situation organized or disorganized, as long as it's effective, without a fascist leadership? Because they don't want to be that either. They are conscious of the fact that they don't want to be messiahs, political messiahs. At least Savio is particularly, he wants to go out. Yesterday he was weeping, saying he wanted to go out and live in nature.
Beautiful.
So, I mean, he's like basically where we are.
Well, I think that thus far the genius of this kind of underground that we're talking about is that it has no leadership. The Western world has labored for many, many centuries under a monarchical conception of the universe, where God is the boss, and political systems and all kinds of law have been based on this model of the universe, that nature is run by a boss. Whereas if you take the Chinese view of the world, which is organic, they would say, for example, that the human body is an organization in which there is no boss. It is a situation of order resulting from mutual interrelationship of all the parts. And what we need to realize is that there can be, shall we say, a movement, a stirring among people, which can be organically designed instead of politically designed. It has no boss.
Yeah, well,
and yet all the parts recognize each other in the same way as the cells of the body all cooperate together.
Well, it's a new social structure.
Yes.
It's a new social structure which follows certain kinds of historically known tribal models.
Exactly, yeah. My historical reading of the situation is that these great monolithic empires have developed in history, Rome, Turkey, so forth, and they always break down when enough people, and it's always the young, the creative, and the minority groups, drop out and go back to a tribal form. And I agree with what I've heard you say in the past, Gary, that the basic unit is tribal. And what I envision is thousands of small groups throughout the United States, Western Europe, and eventually the world, is dropping out. What happened when Rome fell? What happened when Jerusalem fell? Little groups went off
precisely,
together.
what do you mean by drop out then? Since you haven't dropped out, you dropped out of your job as a psychology teacher in Harvard. Now, what you dropped into is, one,
I want to start by giving what may be to many of you a new definition of the word myth. As normally used, the word myth means an idle tale, a fable, a falsehood, or an idea that's out of date, something untrue. But there is another, older and stricter use of the word myth, whereby it doesn't mean something untrue, but it means an image in terms of which people make sense of life and of the world. Supposing, for example, you don't understand the technicalities of electricity, and somebody wants to explain them to you. He wants to explain about the flow of currents. Well, to do that, he compares electricity with water. And because you understand water, you get some idea about the behavior of electricity. Or if an astronomer wants to explain to you what he means by expanding space, he'll use the metaphor of a balloon, a black balloon with white spots on it. The white spots represent the galaxies. And then if you blow up the balloon, they all get further away from each other at the same speed as the balloon blows up. In neither case are we saying that electricity is water or that the universe is a balloon with white spots on it. We are saying it's something like it. And so in the same way, the human being has always used images to represent his deepest ideas of how the universe works and what man's place in it is. And tonight I'm going to discuss certain aspects of two of the greatest myths in this sense of the word, which have influenced mankind's thinking. First of all, the myth of the universe as an artifact, as something made, as a carpenter makes tables, chairs, and houses, or as a potter makes pots, or as a sculptor makes figurines. And on the other hand, the image of the world as a drama, in which all the things in the world are not made, but acted, in the same way as a player acts parts. For these are the two great images which govern respectively the religions of the West, descending from Hebraism, that is to say, Hebraism itself, Christianity, and Islam, and on the other hand, the myth which governs those religions which have had their origin in India, most particularly Hinduism itself, and to a lesser extent Buddhism. And I want to make it perfectly plain before I go any further that in talking about these two great religious traditions, in terms of images, I'm talking about the way they express themselves at a rather popular level. Sophisticated Christians and sophisticated Hindus think beyond images. For example, a Christian may think of God as the Father, but a sophisticated and educated Christian does not imagine that God is a cosmic male parent with a white beard sitting on a golden throne above the stars. Nor does a Hindu imagine literally that God is the super showman, the big actor. These images are what it is like, not what it is. And perhaps when I get through with discussing them, we'll be able to ask the question as to whether any of these images still make sense to us in this 20th century when we have a view of the world so powerfully shaped by Western science. Now let me begin then with a few things about the image of the world, and thus the image of man, as it comes to us from the Hebrew Bible. It's said in the book of Genesis that the Lord God created man out of the dust of the earth, as if he had made of Adam a clay figurine. And then he blew